Hi, welcome to new video series. In this case, we're gonna start with new, of course, video series. Gonna be about React.js because we wanted to make our projects for web development, and for that we need to React.js for our browsers. But we're gonna talk about both the React.js and React Native. But first of all, what is the meaning of, or what is in general, the React for most people? I mean, we're gonna start by who right now are using this framework or library, how most people know about React.js. We cannot talk about React.js because we need to talk about Facebook, Instagram, and Netflix. They are three major players with React.js. But we need to remember React.js is basically a project or library that Facebook team created for JavaScript, or at least they make sure they have big play inside the libraries and frameworks um, for the browser, and of course using JavaScript technology, because we need to remember that Google have Angular, even Microsoft have their own s- style type. We're gonna call it whatever it is. I am talking about, of course, TypeScript. But we're gonna continue with React.js. Facebook is the founder, but it's not that, well, at least the only player for right now, because a lot of companies abroad the world, I mean, not just in the States, I'm talking about South America, Europe, I'm talking about the big hubs in the Europe like Amsterdam, Zurich, Barcelona, Berlin, um, Stockholm, big, huge demand of React.js. We don't gonna compare it with Angular because Angular is still being the most framework using and the most powerful right now. But React.js have big impacts in our industry. Of course, I am talking about web development. Netflix was the last big player inside the community. We needed to remember, React.js have two community: the community of team of developers and software engineering inside the Facebook, and the community of developers. You can see a lot inside the GitHub, one platform like Stack Overflow, even in YouTube, big presence of videos and courses about React.js, because we have a lot of demand of React.js. Netflix, why? I mean, Netflix have their own system, but they still using React.js. I mean, we need to understand that the big money and big team of Netflix is not about developers, about designers. It's about digital marketing, and of course, the big hope of Netflix is the actors and the screenplayers. But it's good for them because they're using it and they are leaders. Remember, 60% of the traffic of the United States it's Netflix. I mean, if we have 60% of the traffic and the work, does that mean the technology using we are talking about React.js, it's good enough to support all that demand? We're gonna continue with React.js. I said it's made by Facebook. And a lot of people, when talking about React.js, they think the only thing about this library. I wanted to say framework, but it's not framework. It's library. It's Facebook, and it's not true. I mean, we see and we know a lot of communities behind the React. I think now React, the big community is not Facebook. It's freelance developers, front end. Major of them they are front end, of course, but a lot of people still thinking the React.js it's Facebook only, and it's not true. The third one, why React? Now I am not talking about React.js, the library of JavaScript. We are talking about technology, and of course we are talking about React Native. React Native now it's big things inside the Android and Apple community, not just for applications made. I'm talking about community behind. is still big in 2020. I mean, it started in 2017 when the community started growing up, and a lot of developers started using React Native, and a lot of companies that require their application in native of React. But what we need to start with React.js. The essential requirement is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Or at least the principles of JavaScript. I'm talking about DOM. Basically, I mean, not all DOM, but even listeners, get element by ED, get element by users, and all the stuff required to manipulate the DOM. But if we wanted to take big steps inside the full stack of React.js, we need to Node.js, basically the server, and S6, the last um, the last language of JavaScript the modern JavaScript vanilla. Why? Because inside the React.js we don't gonna use all our development or our components gonna be in with JavaScript or HTML. We're gonna use the syntaxes of Java of React.js called JSX. For that we require to know at least S6. Why React? How I said before, behind it's one of the biggest components in the world and one of the biggest traffic inside the web, Facebook. But the second thing is the focus in logic. A lot of people they think how the most difficulty it's a framework library or even programming language. The most interesting is and is not true because now in these days we need to support a lot of traffic and of course small teams. You remember the WhatsApp it was sold to Facebook for more than $25 billion and they have less than 50 employees. The third one, the most important I think, the logic of the business. I mean, the amount of the traffic you have, the most important you are. That means the business you can create it behind and yeah, you can surround yourself with a big business if you have the logic ready. And React.js, it's how that logic we need to create our business. The fourth, it's the user interface. If we start with JavaScript, the user interface gonna be good, but if we're gonna scale our projects, it's gonna be terrible. Everyone work with JavaScript, and he wanna, or at least the project he was working in, require huge performance is not good, and even it's worst. Time by time, you can understand that. But if you wanted to work with big and huge performance for user interface, the best thing you're gonna do is using the React JS. But we need to talk about the tools React JS have. The two things very important and yeah, I think is very interesting to use is GraphQL and Redux. We're gonna talk about GraphQL. GraphQL basically it's a distribution of or provided of distribution of APs. It basically classified all our information inside the IP. If you work with AP with Node.js, you know you need something to help you to have, you know, basically order. I'm talking about the order, and the GraphQL is very, very important. Redux. Redux is very important for roads because if we wanted to have huge performance for our user, it's basically the navigation inside our website don't collapse and don't be so low. We need to use Redux because basically Redux what he did for our component is jumping the roads without using the roads. Remember, the JavaScript use the road from the top to the bottom, but with the help of React.js and of course the Redux, a lot of people calling Redux the framework of React.js, and I think it's very true. It's helping us to jump the roads. We don't need to follow the roads from imagine 0 to 10. If we wanted to go to 6 directly to 7 road directly, we can use the Redux. But if we don't have Redux, we need to use the first road, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth. This is the road traditional of JavaScript. But if we have Redux, we can jump from the 0 to the 6. And of course help our page to be fluent and very user experience. The last one is the most important I think for React.js. It's the mer. The full stack it was very popular in 2018, of course because Angular framework started blowing up, and of course the React.js, the second big player inside. The React, a lot of I don't know if it's Facebook, but a lot of communities started using the Mongo for React and start creating the full stack of React. Basically, they use the MongoDB for database, the Express, it's the framework of Node.js, and Node.js is the server. And of course, with the technology with sorry the React.js. Now we're gonna start with this video series, basically explaining the beginner of the React. We're gonna create our components, our webs, and even explain how to create the projects, the roads, all things that you need to create your web project with React and the React.js technologies. The next step is gonna be created our React application. We're gonna go to the terminal inside our Visual Code, and we're gonna sorry the terminal, new terminal, and we're gonna start creating our project. I'm gonna put React.js project, the name my my project. For that, we need to put npm create React app. Sorry, create dash React. I'm gonna write it npm. Sorry, npx create dash React dash app. And now we're gonna put the name. Gonna be um, React.js React.js tutorial, and we're gonna press enter. Tutorial. Here we go. Now we are start creating our app. The gonna be inside the folder of read home. And here we go. Now we are installing all our dependencies and the requirement we need to execute it React application. I mean, of course, if you wanted to install, you need to install the npm with npm install.jg. It's going to install all the package of npm globally, and you need to have Node.js inside your computer. Okay. Remember, before starting creating the app, npm package manager you can use inside your terminal of Visual Code npm install uh, dash g, and Node.js you need to go to the page official page, and you load it from there, and you can start using the terminal of Visual Code and start creating your application here. Now we are inside our in fact we are not inside our project, but we are inside um, I need to put cd, and I'm gonna copy from here. One moment please. And now we're gonna inside our project, we're gonna put the folder, and we're gonna start our server, npm start, npm start. Now we're gonna start our project. I'm gonna put, sorry, found our project folder. Now our folder is open. We're gonna go to the desktop and we're gonna save it here. We're gonna put React, React.js tutorial. Now we are inside our uh, project folder. We have a package.json. We're gonna see what dependency we have. Yeah, I mean I have the React DOM because it's installed by default, and nothing more. I mean it's just basic download. We're gonna save it because I wanted to put this folder in my desktop. I'm gonna go to I wanted to select all the folder and I need to put save it in my desktop. Sorry, in my escritorio. In Spanish that means desktop. The name is gonna be same React.js tutorial, and we're gonna save it. Now we're gonna see um, our DOM. I'm sorry, I'm our local host. You remember we have here in terminal um, our server, and now we're gonna go to our browser, and here we go, localhost 3000, and our project is running. Okay, this is the basic introduction of front end screen of React.